أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد وعلى عترة الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Amma ba'd, Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to another show of Real Talk, and today we have Shahenaz Jaffer with us. Shahenaz, would you like to introduce yourself to us?
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah.
Alaikum salam. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I would like to begin by saying that I'm a mother of two boys, Irfan and Farhan, a grandmother as well. I was born and raised in Kenya and have lived in the United States for the past 35 years.
MashaAllah.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell me a little bit more about what sort of work you do?
All right. So I am, in every essence, you can say I'm a salesperson. So I can sell almost anything. I did have my business for 22 years in interior design, and that's my passion. But currently, I'm running a small car dealership.
Nice.
So,
and you do a lot of community work as well, right?
yeah, I am the chair lady of our Jamaat. I also am the rep for spiritual journeys, and we've been doing ziyarat for the past 10 years, alhamdulillah. Yeah, I do enjoy doing community work a lot.
What got you into community work?
So I'm going to say my mother was always a community person. My mother converted a long time ago, and she's an exemplary person. And I always told her, Mom, I would never do what you're doing. And here I am.
Yeah, and you ended up doing it.
Yeah, I just enjoy doing it. I like helping people, and my biggest passion is my Hajj and my Ziyarah, and that's what I like to do. I like to help people.
So you obviously, you go with spiritual journeys quite a bit. So you must be going quite a few times a year, or at least every once a year.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, every time we have a trip.
Okay, so just one question. I think this question comes up quite a lot for those people who go quite often. How do you, one, keep it sort of fresh and not sort of, robotic or ritualistic? And secondly, do you always get something out of the ziyarah every single time you go?
Every single time is different. I don't think I've had one single ziyarah that matches another. Everything's different. How do you not keep it robotic? Your love for your imam cannot be robotic. There's a connection there. You yearn to go. You yearn to go. So I wouldn't even begin to know how it would be robotic.
Nice. Do you feel you change from every ziyarah that you go to, or do you feel like you just learn something new about yourself, or does that manifest in a change in yourself?
So, there are people who think, oh my God, she goes for ziyarah, she needs to be different, and she needs to be holier than thou, and she needs to be like an exemplary person. And it's not that, it's about being a good person. And I think every time I go, it makes my habits a little better. You make up your mind, I don't want to do this, I want to better myself at this end, I want to be you just set certain goals and you just work with them.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so you mentioned in your introduction that you're a mother of two boys. Do you want me to tell me a little bit about your boys?
Yeah, so my younger son is Farhan. He's married and he has a child, 2.5-year-old joyful little girl, mashallah. Zara she's the center of our universe right now. And my older son, Irfan, he passed away 2016 December, a week before he was supposed to go for ziyarah.
Wow, that must have been really difficult for you.
It was very hard, and it still is very hard.
I can imagine. Are you okay telling us a little bit about what happened?
So Irfan and Farhan, both very, very close. They're like best friends, year and a half apart. And
who's the older? Sorry, I'm going to keep stopping you just to clarify things. Who's the older one, Irfan or Farhan?
Irfan.
Okay.
Irfan is the older one, only by 15 months.
Okay.
So Yeah, I believe they got into some sort of trouble as they were growing up, meaning, they were looking for some sort of stability, some sort of direction, is what I'm going to say. And we did everything, the kids grew up going to madrasa, the kids grew up doing the right stuff, praying Jamaat namaz at home with their dad, went to mosque, we never missed anything. They grew up like you would bring up any normal Khoja child or any Shia child. They did their 14 Masumin Ziyara and remember every little bit of it as well.
Okay, so the kids grew up like a normal Shia family. You had two sons. They went to madrasa. Were you close to your sons?
Very close.
Okay, so
Very
they
close.
could talk to you.
Yes, my sons talk to me about everything.
Okay, and then did they go to university, or were they at
So both of them went to university, and that's when I think everything changed. When they went to university, they encountered a bad batch of friends, is what I'm going to call it.
So in
And
university, were they living at home or away?
no, they were living away.
Okay. And how much contact did you have with them when they were at university, when they were away?
They called every single day.
Okay, so you still had that quite a close contact with them.
Yes, now Farhan would call me every single day, but Irfan would call me 10 times a day.
Okay, wow. Okay.
Yeah, we had that connection. He would call me 10 times a day. He would text me umpteen times a day. He was just, I don't want to say mama's boy, but he was just a mama's boy.
Okay. And then you said he got into with a group of bad friends. How did
Right.
that play out?
And what they did was that was the introduction of drugs in their life. Now, I'm not going to say they didn't do anything growing up. I think at that time, when they were still at home, they had uh, tried using weed and marijuana, which was the thing for all the boys to do if they wanted to belong. And I had at that point gotten very, very upset because the drugs were brought into the house by one of their cousins.
Okay.
Yeah. So I called the cops, thinking,
Wow.
yes, I called the cops. I was bad. I was bad. I didn't want my children to go astray. I called the cops, and the cops came home. I was actually hoping for them to take Irfan away for at least 24 hours to scare him
Mm.
so he would stop. And I guess it's very important for your spouse and you to be on the same page, because my husband said to the cops, "No, don't do anything, just go." So that was the first time I caught them. I wanted to rectify things, but my husband wouldn't let me because that's who he
I
was.
think so one of the things that you said, which is quite powerful, is that it was actually brought into your house by a family member. So it wasn't an outsider, or it wasn't someone that you didn't know. So that's quite a scary thought, to think that, we're usually quite comfortable with our kids being with family, and obviously that this family member is obviously not someone who's bad, but he obviously got it from someone else, and they sort of encourage each other, right?
Correct, and that's what it was. So it wasn't like it was a white boy or a black boy or somebody who was not religious. These boys all prayed namaz, they all went madrasa. It was just marijuana to opioids. Okay, so they were
This
able
was
to get.
so this was when they were still at home, or this was when they'd gone to
This is
university
when
now?
they'd gone to university because they were doing the marijuana, and that's when they went to university. Obviously, you don't have control over them when they're in university.
Were you
But
aware of them having this
no,
habit when they were okay? So you
no,
weren't at all.
no, I wasn't aware of that. That I knew they were doing weed, and it was just difficult to wean them off of that. And so they at one point jumped to opioids, and when they came home on break, I would see it, and that's when I got to the bottom of it and figured out that they have a problem and we need to fix it. So
Okay.
they got sent away to rehab.
Okay. So how did you do that? I mean, obviously, for someone who's, for the our public, our viewers, they may not know the process of how you would do that. So when you found out, what was the first thing that you did?
Call the cops again.
Okay.
I called the cops again, and the cops said, we can't do anything. You need to get them to a rehab. You need to do this. This is actually a pandemic that is worse than cancer. You know, you have cancer, you go to the hospital, they give you chemotherapy. All right. They give you radiation, they give you medication. You want to get better. When you're on this, I think there's this yearning in their body that has gotten so used to it that
Mm.
they want to take the next step. And it's not like they were unhappy or they had a void in their life. They were happy boys. It's just that I don't know what took over the boys.
I think that that's actually a very powerful statement because we I think a lot of people make judgments that if you're on drugs, that means there must be something lacking in your life. In like maybe you'd had really a bad childhood, maybe you had you didn't have parents who cared, or you didn't have a religion or something. And like you're saying, these your boys were just like any other Khoja boys. They went to madrasa. They were close to family. They had friends. They used to pray. They did everything that the way that we're meant to, in a
They
sense.
did everything. They were raised the right way. I mean, my mother was the chair lady. My husband was the mukhi. Okay, so we literally opened the mosque and we closed the mosque. These kids would be, they'd walk into the mosque awake and we'd carry them into the car because they were asleep. So
And
they had a lot of exposure.
you had a relation, and you had a close relationship with them. So it wasn't like you didn't have a relationship where they couldn't talk to you either.
No, they talked to me. They told me, Mom, this is what's going on. Mom, this is what's going on. We can't get away from it, and they did come to me and they did want help. And when they did come and say they wanted help, we got them in rehab. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy.
How did you manage to get what are the steps that you took to get them into rehab?
All right. So obviously it wasn't easy. There was a lot of fighting, yelling. There was a lot of denial first. Oh, we're not doing anything. The younger one was less involved. The older one was more. Okay. Irfan was, I'm a functioning addict, Mom. I can do everything. And this, I'm taking this forward after university. He graduated with flying colors. Like he was amazing. With this going on, he was still amazing. In between that, he had gone to rehab, right? And came out of rehab, went back to school, came out of rehab, went back to school. This went on like 4 times.
Hmm.
And finally, after he graduated, he moved back home. And when he did move back home, you could see it was not good.
Okay.
It wasn't good. You could see that he was getting into car accidents. He totaled 4 cars.
Wow.
He crashed 4 cars. Yeah. So, and every time he crashed a car or something happened, it was never his fault. It was always somebody ran him off the road. Typical story every single time. And at that time, we decided it's really getting out of hand. My house had become a battlefield. It wasn't a home anymore. There was always, we were always screaming, yelling because by that time he'd already done rehabs and he didn't want to do anything. He just
So
didn't
every
want.
time you went into rehab, when he came out, was he off the drugs, or was it
He was
less, or how did it work?
he was totally off the drugs. He'd be
Okay.
totally off the drugs, and he was fine for a little while until he had a trigger or he ran in contact with someone and he got back into it.
Okay. And you were obviously watching this and having very little control over that. How did that make you
Very,
feel?
very, very, very. It was terrible. It was terrible. And my mom was alive at that time, and you know, she was a mess. We were all. It was horrible. It was horrible because Irfan was extremely, extremely funny, extremely amazing. He was a people person. So you couldn't see that if you walked in front of him, he'll come and talk to you, he'll speak to you. You couldn't see that he had a problem. We could see he had a problem. So a lot of children, a lot of people that are doing this, you won't necessarily see the telltale signs, okay? Because these are very smart kids. They're very smart when they do that. They really cover it up well.
Okay.
So the reason I know is because my boys talk to me.
So you said both of your boys had got this habit, but you said Irfan more than Farhan.
Right.
How was Farhan through all of this? He went to rehab as well?
He went to rehab as well, and then he actually got a job. Now both of them have now graduated. He got a job a little further away from here. He still lives there. It's an hour and a half away from where I am. And
Mhm.
what happened with Farhan is he got into a really good program where they taught him how to manage, not deal with anything, not take anything. And he went to every one of his classes. Like they have Narcotics Anonymous, and Farhan went there religiously.
Mm.
Okay, and then from the from a rehab, they put you in a halfway house. In a halfway house, you're actually cooking yourself, you're cleaning, you're staying on your own. And Farhan actually did it.
Mhm.
Irfan just couldn't do that. Like that wasn't for him. He just had to be home.
Okay.
And when he was home, he would fall back into it.
So throughout all of this, while this was happening, how much did you share with the people around you? I mean, you said your mother knew, but what about the rest of the extended family? What about the community, your friends? Did you share any of this? And how did they take it if you did?
So my mom knew, my aunt knew, my brother and my cousin. Now my brother and cousin lived with us for a very long time. And I think part of it is when they moved out, that support system that they had with their mamus, that got lost somewhere along the line. Mamus would call them, but now they didn't have that control over them, where I think Irfan and Farhan were both very attached to their uncles. So they would speak with them. But yeah, my brothers knew, my bhabhi knew, my parents knew. A couple of my friends did know, and they kept saying it'll get better, but it never got better, you know.
How are you coping through all of this? I mean, it's a huge thing to have on you as a mother.
It's very hard. It's extremely difficult. And you know what? It's 4 years and it's still raw. It's not something that's going to heal. It's just raw. I just feel like I could have saved my son, but I tried everything. We tried everything.
Okay, so let's go back a bit, because we haven't. I want the story to come out completely. So you said that Farhan had come off and he was on track, but you were having still difficulty with Irfan.
Yeah.
Um, so how did that proceed then?
So we had to separate the two boys, and Farhan was living in York,
Yeah.
and he actually had Irfan come there to the halfway house. He goes, bro, you've done your rehab. You're like 56 days clean, which is huge.
Mm.
Um, Come to York. I'll set you up. I've helped a lot of people because now Farhan is mentoring people because he's nice,
Oh.
he's clean, he's actually mentoring people. And he's like, bro, you need to come here. I can help you.
Mhm.
Um, Irfan did go. Irfan did go. And within 3 or 4 days, it's like, this is not for me, man. I signed out and he came back home.
Okay. And then what happened?
And then he went back to rehab. This is the last time. He's like, okay, mom, I want to go back to rehab. This is not good. I need to go back. If Farhan's in a good place, I know you're really upset. I need to go back to rehab. So we sent him to a rehab in California.
Hmm.
This is 2016, before Arbaeen, like 4 months before Arbaeen, 4 or 5 months before Arbaeen. This
Okay.
time he agreed to go to a 60-day rehab because he knew that he needed the help. So he went to rehab. He tried to sign himself out a couple times, but somehow he'd call me and I'd talk him into staying back. He'd call me, I'd talk him into staying back. And while he was in
So
rehab,
sorry, as adults, and they can't forcibly be kept there. It is out of choice that
they, they,
they're
they
there.
can sign, yeah, they can sign themselves out anytime. That's the problem we had with him. He'd keep signing himself out,
Okay.
and then you'd be back on the drawing board. So he was there, and something happened, and he agreed to stay, and something happened. He says, "Mom, I want to go for ziyarah." I'm like, what
Wow.
happened? And he says, I found my Allah, and those are the words he said. He says, I found Allah. I want to go for ziyarah. I think it's really going to help me when I come out of rehab to go straight to Abdullah. And he was
Wow.
Hazrat Abbas was his rock was Hazrat Abbas. And I said, okay. So I said, after Arba'in, we'll go for December. And he says, no, I want to go Arba'in. I said, no, you're not ready for Arba'in. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this is a way for him to get out of rehab because Arba'in's just around the corner.
Mm.
And I said, no, we'll go December and then I'll take you to Africa for a month, you know. So he was doing well. He came out. He was good. He came home 2 weeks prior to Ziara, December Ziara. So I went to Arbaeen. I came back from Arbaeen. 2 weeks prior to Ziara, he came
So
home.
how long's he been clean now?
Now he's been at rehab for 60 days. So he's been clean for about 90 days.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. So that's a long time.
Mm.
And he's in a good place and they release him and he comes home, he's happy, he's lost a lot of weight. I mean, Irfan, he looked like a stick. That's how skinny he had become. Because what happens is when you go into rehab and they wean you off of one medication, they put you on another one, you lose your appetite, you get the jitters, you get sick. And that's the reason why a lot of children don't want to do this. A lot of people don't want to do it because weaning off and the rehab procedure is very difficult. You become
Mm.
very sick, you know. So
Yeah.
that's here as well. So he was clean, he was good. He came home and very excited about Ziara. So I picked him up 2 Thursdays before, okay?
Okay.
And there was Miladun Nabi coming up a week before we traveled as well. So he was so excited. There was an interfaith program, and he goes, Mom, I want to go for the interfaith program. He actually helped me pick out my clothes, what I was going to wear at the Kushali. Like, he's like, Mom, wear this one. And like, we had everything ready, because he was excited. I was excited for him. All right. So the week before, he spent a lot of time on the computer watching all videos, all Ziyarat videos. And his biggest thing was to meet Sayyida Mar Nakshwani again. And this time he's like, Mom, you think he's going to talk to me like one on one? And I said, Yep, he'll talk to you one on one. And that was his biggest thing. He wanted to meet up with Syed. That's it. That's what he wanted to do. And
And like you're saying, he's actually preparing. He's watching videos, preparing himself for the ziyarah.
yes, and then he spent a whole afternoon, I'm going to say from 11 o'clock in the afternoon till about 5 p.m., 6 p.m., I think, talking nonstop to my husband about Mukhtar, about you name it. They were talking about every single personality. And I'm like, Irfan, how do you know these things? So he was a history junkie, and he loved Islamic history. So how do you know all this? He goes, I know everything. But they spend a good 5, 6 hours talking nonstop. And I'm like, it's namaz time, guys. And my husband just gave me an ishara. He says, leave it, let him talk. So they talked like 6, 7 hours straight about all this. And then they would, after, in the evening after that, after namaz, he sat down. He was preparing himself for ziyarah. That's what he was doing.
Okay, so you're excited about the ziyarah. He's excited about the ziyarah, and you've got 17th of Rabiul Awwal coming up.
Right.
Do you want to tell us what happened on the 17th of Rabiul Awwal?
Okay, so on the 16th of Rabiul Awal, we were having an interfaith program, and Irfan woke up that morning, and he's like, I feel itchy, I don't feel well, I don't this, and we opened. I took off his sheets and his comforters, not knowing what happened, what's going on. Now, the previous night, the night before, one of his friends passed by the house. Okay, and I am thinking possibly the friend gave him something and he took something. It's
Okay.
either that day or the day after, but I'm thinking he did something. He used something on Thursday. Now, get this, when your body is clean, all right, and you put something in it that's toxic, you're going to have a really bad
Reaction.
reaction.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't realize when he said to me that my entire body is itching, Mom, I'm itching, and I didn't pick up on it because I've never seen him do that. So I took off the sheets, and we washed all his sheets, and then I opened a little container, and he goes, Mom, what's that? I said, that's my coffin. And he goes, oh, it's your coffin? He said, this is my coffin and this is Dad's coffin. And then he looks and says, this is all Nani's stuff. So he took his Nani's stuff. He was very close to my mom. He took Nani's stuff and started smelling, and he goes, I really miss Nani, and oh, I wish I could be with Nani. And he's smelling this stuff. And, that was that conversation. And then I made his bed and everything. And he said, I didn't sleep all night because I was itching and I wasn't feeling good. I said, okay. At about 9 o'clock in the morning, I got a phone call from somebody in the Jamaat, and she said, can you do me a favor? My husband was supposed to go to Philly and pick up the kebabs for tonight's dinner.
So this is on
And
this for the 17th of Rabiul Awwal, right?
this is
The
on the
month.
16th. This is the 16th.
Okay,
Okay,
this is
we
the
had the program. Yeah, we had the program on the 16th in the evening.
okay, okay. Sorry.
So, yeah. So I said to her, listen, it's Friday. Mo's not going to go anywhere because it's Juma namaz. Okay. And we
Mm.
only have one car. And she said, no, don't worry about it. Come to the mosque with Mo. You just can take our car. My husband's not feeling well and he can't make this trip. I said, okay. Now, everybody that knows me knows that I don't know how to say no. I just don't say no. If you ask me to do something, I'm going to do it. Okay. If it's difficult, I'll still find a way to do it. So I got in the car and I'm telling Irfan, why don't you come with me to Philly? We're leaving on Friday. This is Thursday. We're leaving next Friday. Why don't you? No, this was Friday. My bad. This was Friday. Why don't we go to Philly? I'll pick up the stuff. You can go get your haircut done. And he said, no, Mom, we'll go next Thursday, the day before we leave. And I tried really hard for him to come with me, and he was iffy. Yeah, I'm coming. No, I'm not coming. So anyway, he didn't come with me. Um, I got in the car and I left, and I said to him, what are you going to do? And he says, I'm going to sleep because I didn't sleep well last night. He goes, Mom, give me $10. I want to go to McDonald's and pick up some milkshake. So the McDonald's was 2 minutes away from my house, walking.
Mhm.
So he walked over there, he came back and he had his milkshake, and he came back in the house, and I said to him again, you really don't want to come with me. It'll be so much fun. I'll take you out for lunch. I was afraid to leave him alone. I don't know what it was. I was afraid.
Mm.
He goes, no, Mom, I don't want to come. I said, all right. We went to mosque. Mo did Juma namaz. I said, I'm going to pick up the kebabs and come back. So when I picked up the kebab, I came back home. I went to the mosque. I dropped off the food. And I called my husband. I'm like, where's Irfan? And he goes, Irfan's sleeping. I said, okay, good. He's sleeping. I didn't even bother to call him or anything.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm going to the hairdresser to get my hair done. So I went to the hairdresser and got my hair done. Because it's Kushali.
Yeah.
Came back home and I opened the door. Now he'd asked me to bring chicken for him. Open the door. Irfan, 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 Irfan wouldn't answer. And by this time, my husband already got dressed and he was on the way to the mosque because we both volunteer. Okay. And I asked him, where's Irfan? And he said, he's still sleeping. I'm like, you didn't check on him? I was a little upset. I mean, you didn't check on him. We didn't wake him up. He's supposed to go for Kushali. And he goes, no, I didn't. I said, okay. So I'm walking up the steps. Now I'm screaming and now I'm panicked. I'm like, Irfan, where are you? I open the door and he's laying on the bed, motionless.
Wow.
And I saw foam at his mouth, and I was just, I didn't know what to do. So before I called 911, I called his brother and I said, Farhan, where are you? And he said, I'm at work about 2 hours away. And I said, you need to come home. And he goes, what happened? I said, Irfan's not here anymore. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, no, Irfan's dead. And he says,
Wow.
Mom, check. I said, I checked. He's got foam in his mouth. He goes, Mom, call 911. And Farhan's on his way back. I call 911. I call my husband first. I'm like, where are you? He goes, at the mosque. I said, come back right now. Irfan's dead. I mean, I'm just saying it so bluntly, like it's nothing. I'm in shock, you know.
Mhm.
I call 911. The woman tells me to take this boy and put him on the ground. This is a 6 foot tall person that I am now trying to pull off the floor, off the bed onto the floor. I bring him on the floor, and as I turned him over, all this blood came gushing out of his mouth, all right, and his nose. And they asked me to, give him mouth to mouth, try to resuscitate him. And I told them, you people, he's gone. He was warm. I had a little bit of hope because he was still warm, you know. But the paramedics came and they tried, and nothing worked. Nothing worked.
Wow.
Yep. They took him away from there, took him to the hospital. And yep.
How, um, what did you tell everyone? Were you quite open about how he passed away, or?
No, I was a little, I was, you're always afraid of judgment, and our people really like to judge. They don't see how much effort has been put to save this child, how much effort has been put to fix the problem. Our people just like to take the problem, sweep it under the rug, and say it hasn't happened.
Okay,
Okay?
so first of all, I don't think it's just our people that judge. I think
It's
generally people tend to
everywhere.
judge anyway, because when you start judging other people, it takes the focus away from yourself, so you feel better about your own life. And I think that's
Right.
why people tend to judge. So yeah, I can understand that. You know, it must have been so difficult to lose a child is difficult enough, but to lose a child in those sort of circumstances
It's very
must have
hard.
been, yeah, I can't even imagine. Sorry, so you're saying that, yeah,
So they took him to the hospital, and by that time, my husband's back home, and we both have no emotion. We're just going through the motions now. Changed my clothes. We said our namaz, and we went to the hospital because the paramedics took him. I went to the hospital. Farhan came straight to the hospital. The one other person one other person I called was obviously Irfan's dad. This is, my husband right now is not Irfan's dad, but he has been the most supportive person for the boys. Right from the get-go, he knew what was going on, and he was always there for them. Um, Went to the hospital, and I called one more person. I called Raza Manji, and he's in New York, and he's closer to me than a brother. Him, his wife, and the kids. I think they got here in record time. They got here in record time, and I didn't tell anybody else anything. And then it was announced at the mosque, that Irfan passed away, and everybody assumed car accident. And at that time, I'm like, okay, if people are saying accident, let it be accident, you know.
yeah,
And I think right after the Kushali, 80% of the mosque was at the hospital. 80% of
wow,
the people were at the hospital. The hospital was filled with our people. And it was so comforting because my friends were there. They were there giving me support. My community members were there giving me support. And, they knew how hard it was because I had just lost my dad a year ago and my mom a year before that. So this is now three deaths, 3 years in a row. But the support from the community was amazing. You know. And at about 11 p.m. that night, they pronounced him dead.
how old was Irfan at that time?
27.
27. Wow.
Super vibrant boy. Super, super vibrant. Super, like he would take your heart.
Okay, so I just want to it's amazing that you've come on and you're talking about this. It takes a lot of guts to be quite open and frank, that like you have been, and I'm so thankful that you have. Can you tell us why you decided to talk about it?
It's because everybody has got this problem. I've seen children that have boys, grown up men in their 30s. Now, I'm much older, so when I is a 30-year-old, to me, he's a child. Even at Ziara, I have encountered people who have actually talked to me and said, "You have no idea, Auntie, how easy it is to talk to you. You're not judging us." These are boys that have come for Ziara and they're saying, "You're not judging us. We can't even talk to our parents about this stuff." And that's the thing. The reason I'm doing this is because I want the parents to reach out to their children. Don't push them away like they're doing something wrong. It's rampant in our community. It's really big out there. And I personally know families who have grown up children. When I say grown up, I'm going to say in their 40s that have been struggling with this for years. And the parents are in denial.
And
You know,
like you said, they can be quite functioning adults, so you wouldn't know.
no, you wouldn't know. Irfan was one of the best salespeople in his company. He sold diamonds. Okay. He was focused. He was like a winner. Like he wasn't a loser. He wasn't dumb by any means. But for him to be able to function and be a store manager and had awards every year despite this issue, okay? Yeah, he was salesman of the year, the top 20 in K Jewelers. K Jewelers is vast.
Wow.
Okay, you're
So
top 20 in the world, that means you're not stupid. You're really smart.
so
But
literally you wouldn't know unless you actually talk to them and ask them straight out maybe, and if they were truthful enough to tell you.
yeah, otherwise you would know. You would not know. You would
Okay.
not know.
So you were supposed to go to Ziyarat a week later. What happened with that then?
Okay, so
Obviously now your son's passed away.
I went for Ziyarat.
Wow. Okay.
The group
How
was the group was 400 plus people. Okay, and I
can I just mention here that you weren't going to Ziyarat as just a person who was going for Ziyarat. You were going as a volunteer.
yeah, I
So
go I
that's
go as a
huge.
yeah, I go as a volunteer, and that wasn't going to change my thought. Uh, the group was 400 plus people. What am I going to do? Last minute say, "Oh, I'm not coming. You guys are going to be down one person." I can't do that. And I was going to my imam. I think I healed better because I went.
Okay.
What was I going to do here?
Were you not worried about your other son, Farhan?
So Farhan is like, he's going to go back to work, obviously. I wasn't worried about him. I was worried about him, but his dad was here. Okay. And I said to him, "I'm going for Ziara, and should I not go?" And he said, "No, mom, go." And this was Saturday. We buried Irfan. Sunday, Farhan's still with me. Monday, he calls me Monday afternoon. I'm in a grocery store, and he said, "Was I at a grocery store? I'd gone somewhere to pick something up for Ziara." So he calls me and he says, "Mom, I need to go for Ziara." I said, "When I told you to apply, when Irfan was going, you said, no, you can't take off from work." And he goes, "Nope, I need to go for Ziara instead of my brother." How are you going to do this? There's 5 days left before we leave. Or 3 days left before we leave. Today's Monday, and we have to be on the flight Friday evening. And he goes, "I don't know. Do what you have to do."
And we
So
know how difficult it is to get a visa for
yeah, it is.
Farhan.
Yeah, December visas are difficult. Arbain is not a problem.
Yeah.
So the visas, there's one of our reciters, Mullah Hassan, and Mullah Hassan was in Michigan, Detroit. So I spoke to him. I said, "Mullah, what do you think we can do?" So he said, "Okay, let me speak to someone. Let's see what happens." Because everyone else's passport was still in Michigan. I overnighted the passport to him. He took it to the ambassador the next day. The ambassador was traveling. So he wasn't there. They couldn't stamp it. Going crazy, calling everyone, called so many people. Nothing was happening. And he was like, "I'm going Ziyarat." That Monday, Irfan's passport came in, and I took a picture of the passport and I sent it to Naila. Naila is my cousin who's my cousin Murtaza runs spiritual journeys with his, and Naila's his sister, and she does all the logistics. So I sent her a picture of Irfan's passport and a picture of Farhan. I said, You think we can do this? He wants to travel on his brother's passport. And she's like, are you serious? And I'm like, I'm not. He is. And she said, all right, worst case scenario, we'll try it. What can happen? So I said, all right. So my husband called his friend in Virginia, Sheikh Akun, then said to him, Sheikh, you heard Irfan passed away. He goes, yeah. He goes, his brother wants to go to Ziyarat in the worst way, instead of him. And he said, where's the passport? He goes, in Michigan. He said, overnight it to me. So now this is Tuesday afternoon. Mullah overnights it. There's a snowstorm.
Oh,
All
wow.
right. There's a snowstorm. He overnights the passport. It gets to Virginia on Friday morning. We're
Oh my
traveling
God.
Friday night, okay? There was a Zawar coming from Virginia, okay, flying into JFK. I called him. I said, do you know Sheikh Hakun? And he goes, yes. I said, if he gives you a passport, will you bring it? And he said, yes. He went to the embassy. He has to now do Juma namaz. Okay, it's 11 o'clock in the morning and it's winter time, so you have to do Juma namaz like 12 o'clock. He gets to the embassy, gets the passport stamped, calls us and said, we have a visa.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Now,
Wow. When Imam invites, he probably invites.
yes, yes. Do you want to, yep, do you want the Uber, you want me to Uber it? I said, no, don't Uber it. So and so is coming for Ziara. He's also coming for Juma namaz. Give the passport to him. All right. So now we're already packed. Okay. Farhan had already packed his bags. We were going regardless. He's going to go with his brother's passport or he was going to go and beg, but he was going. He made up his mind. So we drove and we went straight to Raza Manji's house. Okay. Because it's a ritual. Every time I go for Hajj or Ziyara, I go there, park my car. We have dinner with the family and then they bring us to the airport. This has been happening for the past 20 plus years. All right. So I want to say when they came for the funeral, Anisha had just been his daughter. This is Raza's daughter. Anisha had just been to Ziara with us and Arbain, and she brought a little container in which there was the band that she wore, and she said, "There's the dust of Karbala in here." Okay, and she wanted me to put that in his grave.
So beautiful.
Yeah, we put that in his grave, and she goes, "Shino auntie, don't worry." She sat awake with me the whole night at the mosque. The whole night she sat next to me at the mosque. She took over my phone because there was so many phone calls and everything coming in. And when we said Kudafis to Irfan, we actually did matam on his chest, because he was going for ziyarah, So we did matam on his chest, and I sent him to Bibi Fatima because I love her son unconditionally, unconditionally. So I know she's taking care of Irfan,
Wow.
And I know I wavered a little bit from the topic right now,
No,
but
it's beautiful. I think that this is where, we can actually see where the strength is coming from. I mean, like I said, losing a child is so difficult for a parent, but to lose a child in those circumstances, I can't even imagine. But obviously, the strength that you're able to sort of find within yourself is coming from, Imam Hussain alayhi salam, Fatima alayhi salam. It's
yeah,
amazing to see it.
that's where it comes from. That's where it comes from. And you know what? I went for Ziara and I was this really strong person. I didn't want to cry. I didn't want to talk about anything. I was trying not to, not trying not to trigger anything. Obviously, people came and gave me condolences. The most beautiful thing is I'd left Arbaeen and all the spiritual journey shababs. When I say shababs, all the helpers, all the boys that help,
Mhm.
they are all so loving. When they heard Irfan passed away, okay, when we entered the hotel in Najaf, okay, all these boys were standing in one line and they said, Mama, I'm your Irfan. Mama, I'm your Irfan. Mama,
Oh,
I'm your Irfan.
Allah.
And they held Farhan's hand and said, we're your brother, don't worry. And it just took me to another place. It's like, okay, Allah's given me so many other Irfans, but the love that these Iraqi boys gave me was outstanding. And up till today, they keep in touch with every one of us. They don't call me sister, they don't call me auntie, they call me mom.
It's
You know,
beautiful.
so there's so much love out there, but we forget to love our children because we're afraid of being judged. Seriously, we're afraid of being judged. Don't be afraid, parents. Don't be afraid. Reach out to your children. No one's going to judge you. Save your child. I'm not saying I couldn't have saved my child. I tried my best. Okay, he was only supposed to be here until now.
How did Farhan, how was the ziyarat for Farhan?
Amazing, amazing, amazing. He was really good. It was Kushali time, obviously. We did, oh boy, we had Jushin over there in.
I seem to have lost her. Inshallah, she will come back soon. She'll rejoin us soon, inshallah. Wow, I don't know what words to say. It's amazing what she's been through, and the fact that she's sharing um, the story with us. It's absolutely amazing. I hope, I pray that God, that she is able to use the sabr that God's given her to be able to cope with everything that's gone on in her life, and inshallah we can learn from what she shared with us. It's absolutely amazing. Wow, I really don't know. um, I'm actually lost for words, which is very, very unusual for me. um, but yeah, oh my gosh. um, just trying to get her back on, to just bear with me for a minute. I'm just trying to send her the code to try to get her back on. Fine. Okay, brilliant, she's back on with us. Okay. Oh, she's gone again. Wow. Okay. Sorry about this. So I think one of the things that's come out while we're waiting for her to come back online, one of the things that's come out from here is how Ziyarat
I'm
has
sorry,
really helped. Not a
I don't
problem.
know. I don't know what happened.
No problem. No problem. Yes, you were saying it really helped Farhan going to the Ziyarat.
It helped Farhan a lot, and he met so many people over there, and you could see there were times where he and I would look at each other from across the room. Both of us are crying silently. There's nothing going on. There's something going on. We're crying silently, looking at each other. We're not there. We're thinking of Irfan, but we're trying to be strong for each other. But the ziyar really, really helped.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. We only have about 10 minutes left, so you've been through so much, and the fact that you've openly talked about it, and you've said that people are so worried about being judged, and obviously that must have crossed your mind as well. But you obviously feel very passionate about sharing your story because you don't want other people to go through what you've been through, if it can be stopped by talking to your children and having that conversation with your children. What would you like to share with the listeners? Three pieces of advice which you'd like to share with them um, from what you've been through.
First thing I would say is your spouse and you should always be on the same page. Okay? There's always going to be good parent, bad parent, and you have to be on the same page as your spouse. If you're trying to better your children, you need to be on the same page. Like one cannot say do this and then one says do this. You know what I'm saying? Like when I called the cops for the first time, I still think had they taken Irfan away 24 hours, he would have been scared. Okay, so you did something to better your child. You were trying to punish them. Okay, and it doesn't have to be that severe, but both parents have to be on the same page, whether it be drugs or it be, you know, teaching them something in school. If they have a disability, if they have bullying, please, even if it's bullying, bullying is bad.
Yeah.
A lot of children are going through bullying and they're killing themselves, you know. So
Yeah.
it's very important. Same page, you know, you don't show your children they're your two separate units.
So even if there's a disagreement between you, I think what you're trying to say is that in front of the children there should be total unity between the parents.
100%, 100%, total unity, 100%. You need to be able to show them that you're one unit.
Okay.
You know, and it's in our community. You will see a lot of them. There's a lot of fathers who will be the, you know, I'm going to be giving this to the children. I'm going to undermine what my wife is saying, or she hasn't gone to college and she doesn't know. I know, you know, it's not about that. You know, the other bit of advice is, please don't put your head under a rock or under in the sand like an ostrich. It's a pandemic. We're suffering corona. We're all taking precaution. All of us are taking precaution because it's corona. This is bigger. This is bigger than corona because you're losing your child, you're losing your children, you're losing your siblings. You know,
I
listen
think,
to your children.
yeah, I think we feel like we're in a bubble and we're safe from all of these things that are out there in the Western world. But I think, yeah, that's very naive. You know, that there is every chance that our children are may get into this, and you know, being aware of that is very, very important.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, these children are not East African children, or these are not kids from Pakistan or Iran or India. These are Americans. These are Canadians. These are British children. They are born in this culture. So they're going to feel that's the norm. What we as Khojas are doing is not the norm. And I'm sure a lot of parents are going to hear that argument. Oh, mom, you don't know you're from Africa. Or, mom, what do you know? You guys are from India. You know, this is America. This is London. You know, this is normal for them and they want to belong. Okay. But our people, just because you're Khoja doesn't mean you're going to escape this. There's not any sort of magic thing that's happening around you that's going to save your children. Ki, oh, no, no, I'm a Khoja che, I'm ne kai nahi thai. All right. And then you tell everyone that my son died of a car accident. My son had a hole in his heart. When I hear those, when I hear those, I know how the kid died. I just know. He went to sleep and he died in his sleep. Really? You know, you need to not brush the stuff under the rug. You need to stand up and say there is a problem.
And I don't think it's just drugs, right? There's a lot of other things that are out there, which we need to sort of open our eyes to, and not just, like you're saying, not just brush it under the carpet. And once we open our eyes to it, and we actually have those conversations, then we can actually start looking for solutions and helping each other. And again, it's about helping each other as a community rather than judging each other, because that could be my child as
It's
easily as.
it's so simple, and you don't even know how it happens. The other thing is, so our girls and our boys, they go to university, they go to college, they're allowed to speak to John, Joe, you know, Jimmy, and have a relationship with them and talk to them. And when it comes to speaking to Ali or Abbas or Hussein, it's it's a no-no because haram che, okay? And then our girls and boys are having mixed marriages, which is okay. My son got married to a Caucasian, a white girl. And when that happens, don't shoo your children away. Love them, give them support, and show the bride or the groom the love. And they will themselves
I mean,
want to learn our religion.
yeah, of
You,
course,
you
of
know,
course.
these are other things that we need to say. Our kids are going astray. And when you sort of judge them and push them in the corner, they they walk away from you. Then they build their own little life and they're
Yeah.
away from the religion, they're away from you.
I think, yeah, I think that the greatest lesson is to ensure that we keep our communication open with our children and constantly be talking to them and realizing what's happening in their lives. And it's very difficult when they're away from home. to keep that communication open, because when they're at home, they're facing you every night and you're seeing them. And even when they're trying to hide something, you can tell as a mother because you're seeing them. Whereas when you're seeing them on FaceTime, it's not the same thing at all.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know, maybe it's something that we need to think about is how important is it that our children go away to university? And you know, every child is different. And is it something that I want for my child? Is it that important, or is it something that I feel would be maybe detrimental? Again, we don't know. So, you know, these are questions and that we should be having with our children, and conversations that we should be having with our children.
So I don't think it's because of them going to university. You know, I don't think that has anything to do with it as much as, you know,
being away from
talking to them, being away from the community. You know, that's important.
I think that's the thing. I think it's having those conversations with your children is really, really important, which is what's come up quite a lot, is having those conversations with your children. There's no right or wrong way of doing, you know, parenting is so different for every single child, even within the same family. Like you said, Irfan and Farhan were both, you know, under the influence of drug, but Farhan, alhamdulillah, managed to come out of it. Irfan, unfortunately, didn't. And, you know, it's really sad that he didn't. What I think one of the things that I am really, really, really amazed at is the way that you've not wallowed in your own self-pity. You've not sat there and just, you know, sort of, it's like going to Ziyarat as a volunteer a week later. The fact that you're talking about it to try to get other people aware of the situation and what's happening. And it's beautiful how you're trying to, not that you can never say it's a positive thing, but trying to make something positive out of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I was, in the beginning, I was really afraid. I was so afraid that actually, when I left here, we went for Ziyara. We actually went off to Mombasa for a whole month. I didn't want to face anyone. I just couldn't face anyone. I was embarrassed. I was feeling that everyone's going to judge me. I was where everybody else whose children have problems right now are feeling, you know. I came back to Allentown and I decided to pick up and go off to Atlanta. I was just running from myself until I realized that there's so many people out there that need the help. And if I have the support, we actually wanted to open a foundation, says We Don't Judge Foundation.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, we need to change our mosque into a social place for our children, like a social center for our children, to have mentors, to have uh, people who they can speak with. You know, if you want to speak to your parents, you're afraid, you need to find somebody you can speak to, like a big brother, big sister, sort of, you know, very important.
So there's been a lot of comments here, of people talking about how brave you are and how amazing you are, obviously. But there have been people who've actually been talking about wanting to talk to you on a one-to-one for guidance and just to sort of, you know, get your take on something and help. I'm going to ask them to, how do you want to do this? Should I ask them to message me on alimathujjat.org and then pass it on to you? I mean, they don't have to tell me what's going on.
You can give them my phone number and let them call me. I don't have a problem with them, with that.
So if anyone wants to get in touch with Shahnaz Bhai, please just message me if you have my number, or get in touch at alimathujjat.org, and I will pass on Shahnaz Bhai's number to you. You don't need to tell me what it's regarding at all. I will not ask any questions. I will just pass you the number because Shahnaz Bhai's allowed me to do that. Thank you so very much, Shahnaz Bhai. Before we go, I know you wanted people to see your son Irfan and what an amazing son he was. So I'm just going to put his picture up there and ask everyone to recite a Surah Fatiha, not just for Irfan, but for all our Mahroomeens. So please, Surah Fatiha. thank you again so very much for joining us and for being so open and frank with your story, which obviously was a very difficult story for you to tell. Inshallah, Allah has given you the sabr. Inshallah, you're able to use the sabr that Allah has given you and help all the people that you're helping, and continue to go to ziyarat, and inshallah get your strength from above Billah.
Inshallah, strength comes from. Thank you so much. And again, if anyone needs to call, just call me. Take that first step. If you don't want to call me, just help your children, help your neighbors' children, something.
Inshallah. Thank you very much again. Thank you. Thank you for all of you for joining us. Inshallah, next week we will be talking to Jamila Bai Deoji, who will be talking about losing her husband and how she brought up her children without after the loss of her husband, which is a very powerful thing to talk about. Please join us next week, inshallah, at 7:30, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.